Hey, it's Kaero. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are testing ChatGPT, an artificial intelligence about Magic the Gathering. We're going to see if it can answer questions about Magic the Gathering better than a typical Magic the Gathering player. I've loaded up some questions. Let's start off with some basics. Let's just say, what is the best color in Magic the Gathering? Came back with this response. This is actually really crazy. In Magic the Gathering, each color represents a different philosophy or set of gameplay mechanics. There's no one best color, as different players may prefer different playstyles and strategies. Some players might prefer the aggressive creature-based playstyle of red, while others might enjoy the control and manipulation offered by blue. Green is often associated with ramping up resources and big creatures, while black is known for its removal and graveyard interactions. White is often associated with synergy and creating powerful board states. That's kind of weird because, yeah, a little bit. It's kind of vague. And artifact cards can be used by any color. Ultimately, the best color for you will depend on your personal preference and the specific strategies of decks you enjoy playing. That is actually really insane. That's a very, very good answer. Let's load up some more questions. Maybe we'll ramp up the difficulty a little bit. Okay, so I asked it to name the 5 phases of a turn in Magic the Gathering, and it came back with this. 1. Beginning phase. This phase consists of 2 steps, untap and upkeep. During the untap step, you untap, i.e. turn vertical, all the tap permanents you control. Not only does it say you untap, but it also is like, let me tell you what that is on top of it if you don't know. During the upkeep step, you perform any at the beginning of your upkeep triggered abilities. 2, your draw phase. During the draw phase, you draw a card from your library. 3, the main phase is when you play most of your spells and abilities. You can play creatures, enchantments, artifacts, and other types of permanents, and you can also cast instants and sorceries. And it goes on and on to fully explain in detail every phase of a turn in Magic the Gathering. This is super impressive. Let's get harder. Next, I asked, if I'm going to go play a tournament, am I required to use sleeves on my cards? And it came back with, it is generally recommended to use card sleeves in Magic tournaments as they help protect your cards from wear and damage. However, the specific rules for the use of card sleeve may vary depending on the tournament and the format being played. In most tournaments, players are required to use opaque card sleeves that completely cover the card and do not allow the back of the card to be seen. The sleeves must be in good condition and must not have any markings or writing on them that could be used to identify the cards inside. The use of transparent or clear sleeves, as well as sleeves with markings or writing on them, is generally not allowed in tournaments. Then it goes on to say it's a good idea to check specific rules for local tournaments. This is crazy. Let's go really difficult. I am into asking it specific board states now. I asked, if I'm playing a game of Magic the Gathering and I have a Soul Warden on the field, then I play 2 creatures, how much life will I gain? It responded, in Magic the Gathering, if you have a Soul Warden on the battlefield and you play 2 creatures, you will gain 2 life. Soul Warden is a creature with the ability, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life. This means that whenever you or any other player puts a creature onto the battlefield, Soul Warden's ability will trigger and you will gain 1 life. If you play 2 creatures at the same time, both abilities will trigger and you will gain a total of 2 life. It's important to note that Soul Warden's ability will only trigger when a creature enters the battlefield, not when it is cast or put onto the battlefield from a zone other than the battlefield, such as your hand or your graveyard. Additionally, the ability will only trigger for creatures that are put onto the battlefield under your control, not those put onto the battlefield by your opponent or other players. That is actually wrong because Soul Warden does trigger when other players play it. So it actually is very, very impressive that it gets the ability. It knows it's a game of Magic the Gathering, and initially the answer was right. When Soul Warden's on the battlefield and you play 2 creatures, you gain 2 life. But it does trigger when your opponents put creatures into play, so I'm not sure where it's getting that 3rd paragraph from, but even so, scarily close, frightfully close. Okay, so next I asked, if my opponent has a spell that says this spell cannot be countered, and I have a counter spell and I try to counter it, what will happen? It says, if you try to counter it with a counterspell, that spell will still resolve and have its intended effect. Counterspells are spells that allow you to counter other spells as they're being cast, effectively canceling their effects. However, if a spell includes the text "this spell cannot be countered," it means that it cannot be countered by any means, including by using a counterspell. If you try to counter such a spell, the counterspell will be countered by the game's rules, and the original spell will still resolve and have its intended effect. It's important to pay attention to the card text on spells and abilities, as they often include specific rules or restrictions that can affect how they work in the game. How true that is. This is crazy. All right, one last one. We're going to go super complex and see if we can get it. So this was a very, very specific and a difficult, almost like a trick question that I asked. I cast If I cast Emergent Ultimatum in a game of Magic the Gathering, am I able to choose 3 copies of the same multicolor card? If you're not familiar with Emergent Ultimatum, you cast it, and then you choose 3 cards in your library with different names, and they all have to be mono-colored, and then you exile them, and your opponent puts 1 back, and you get the other 2. But the main thing here is that they have to be monocolored, and you can exile 3, but they can't be the same name. So I asked it, can I exile ones with the same name, and can they be multicolored? It says, if you cast Emergent Ultimatum, you are not able to choose 3 copies of the same multicolored card to exile. That is true. But then it goes on to say, Emergent Ultimatum is a sorcery with the effect, exile the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a multicolored card from among them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard, then shuffle the exile cards into your library. And that is not what Emergent Ultimatum does. So I would be curious to know where it's pulling this from. It's not pulling directly from Emergent Ultimatum. Maybe it's going online to somebody's maybe like misreading, or somebody asked a similar question and somebody answered it wrong. That's the only thing that I can guess. Let me know what you think in the comments. But even so, I'm asking a very, very specific question about game rules inside the game of Magic the Gathering. I'm not asking it as like, hey, are fire hydrants mostly red or yellow? Like, this is an incredibly detailed query here. And the fact that it even gets this close is very impressive. So I'm going to wrap up the video there. This is just like a preliminary test, but I am very, very impressed with ChatGPT. I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up for me. Consider subscribing. I'm probably going to do more of these. If you have a question that you want me to try to ask it and record a video, please put it down in the comments, and I will do my best to bring it to you next time. Thanks, and have a great day.